Maria Jenkins grew up in a quiet town where nothing much ever seemed to happen. She was not the kind of girl who shouted to get attention or tried to follow every trend. Instead, she loved calm and simple things, reading old books, walking in the woods, and most of all, learning about firearms. Her fascination with guns didn't come from movies or games. It came from her grandfather. He had served in the military and was a man of great stories and discipline. Whenever Maria visited him, he would show her his old rifles, telling her how he had used them with care, skill, and respect. Among all his firearms, there was one that stood out, a worn, slightly rusty rifle that had seen decades of service. To Maria, it was more than a weapon. It was a treasure, a connection to her grandfather, and a symbol of patience and mastery. While other kids her age were asking for the newest gadgets, Maria was carefully cleaning the old rifle, learning its weight, its balance, and the feel of its trigger. She spent hours in the backyard, practicing on makeshift targets. She wasn't fast, and she didn't need to be. She learned to focus, to breathe steadily, and to understand the rhythm of aiming. Each shot was a lesson in patience. Every missed target taught her something new. By the time she was a teenager, Maria could hit a target at distances that many adults struggled with. But she didn't brag. She kept her skill quiet, practicing alone, because for her, shooting was not about showing off. It was about discipline, focus, and connection. To herself, to her grandfather's lessons, and to the rifle she cherished. At school, Maria was often overlooked. She didn't run in the popular circles, and she didn't care to. People whispered about her quiet nature, thinking she was shy or ordinary. But Maria had a secret strength. She knew that mastery didn't need an audience. It was earned quietly, shot by shot, day by day. Even when she carried the old rifle, people would laugh or shake their heads. "Why are you wasting time with that old thing?" they would ask. Some friends even tried to convince her to buy a modern rifle, promising it would make her better. Maria would smile politely but refuse. To her, the rifle was perfect. It wasn't about the newest technology or flashy appearance. It was about understanding the tool, respecting it, and letting her skill do the talking. Her grandfather noticed her dedication and often praised her in his gentle, encouraging way. "It's not the rifle that makes the marksman," he would say. "It's the heart, the mind, and the patience behind it." Maria took those words seriously. She didn't just practice. She studied the rifle, learned its history, and imagined the many battles and challenges it had endured. This made her feel connected to something bigger than herself, a line of people who had relied on discipline, not shortcuts, to succeed. Life around her continued normally, with people focused on trends, games, and quick achievements. But Maria's life followed a different rhythm. She woke up early, did her chores, and then spent hours at the shooting range she had set up in her backyard. She learned to adjust for wind, for distance, and for the tiniest movements in her body. Shooting wasn't just about hitting a target. It was about understanding herself. She discovered patience, calmness under pressure, and the thrill of seeing her hard work pay off. While others chased instant gratification, Maria found joy in slow, careful improvement. What made her story even more remarkable was her mindset. She didn't see the old rifle as a limitation. She saw it as a challenge, a way to prove that skill matters more than tools. Every day, she tried to push herself a little further, to perfect her technique, and to become one step better than yesterday. She read manuals, watched videos of military shooters, and even tried to emulate the precision of marksmen she admired. But always, she came back to her grandfather's rifle, the one that felt like an extension of her own hands. By the time Maria reached her late teens, she was more than just skilled. She was exceptional. Her shots were precise, her aim steady, and her understanding of the rifle complete. Yet, she remained humble, never boasting or seeking attention. Her skill was her private achievement, a secret strength she carried quietly. Little did anyone know that the girl with the old rifle in the quiet town would soon face challenges that would make her skill known far beyond her backyard. The discipline, patience, and mastery she had cultivated over the years were about to meet a world that underestimated her. And she was ready. Even though people mocked the rifle and sometimes even laughed at her dedication, Maria didn't mind. She knew that true ability was silent. The old rifle, the lessons from her grandfather, and her countless hours of practice were preparing her for something much bigger. She didn't yet know it, but one day, this quiet skill would command respect from even the most skeptical military professionals, showing that experience and dedication could outshine any modern weapon. For now, she aimed, she breathed, and she practiced, unaware that her quiet determination was building a story that would inspire everyone who witnessed it. When Maria decided to take her skills beyond the backyard, she signed up for a local shooting competition. It wasn't just any competition. It was one where civilians, hobbyists, and even some trained military personnel came to test their skills. Maria thought of it as a chance to measure her progress, to see how her quiet practice had shaped her abilities. What she didn't expect, however, was the reaction she would get from others. As soon as she arrived, people started noticing her old rifle. It was the same worn, slightly rusty firearm she had spent years mastering. Compared to the sleek, modern rifles that many participants carried, hers looked like something out of a history book. Whispers traveled across the range. Some competitors shook their heads, some chuckled, and others outright laughed. "Is that thing even functional?" one of them asked mockingly. Another snickered. "She's going to embarrass herself." The atmosphere felt heavy with doubt, but Maria stayed calm. She didn't argue or try to explain herself. She simply unpacked her rifle, cleaned it carefully, and prepared for the challenge ahead. The mockery, rather than discouraging her, had a strange effect. It fueled her determination. Every laugh and every skeptical glance reminded her why she loved this craft. She remembered her grandfather's words. "It's not the rifle that makes the marksman. It's the heart and patience behind it." She breathed deeply, letting the tension wash off her shoulders, and focused on what she had practiced countless times in solitude. When the competition began, participants moved quickly, aiming to impress with speed and power. Some relied on their high-tech rifles, confident that the latest technology would carry them to victory. Maria, however, moved with careful precision. She took her time, adjusted her stance, and felt the familiar weight of her old rifle in her hands. Every detail, the trigger, the balance, the sights, was second nature to her. Unlike others who were rushed by nerves or eager to show off, Maria was calm, composed, and ready. The first round started and the initial shots went off. Maria's aim was steady, her focus sharp. To the surprise of the crowd, her bullets consistently hit the targets, some of which were at distances many competitors struggled to reach. Gasps could be heard. People began to watch her more closely. The whispers shifted from mockery to disbelief. "How is she hitting that?" someone muttered. Others exchanged worried glances, realizing that this quiet young woman with an old rifle was outperforming them in ways they hadn't anticipated. Even when some competitors tried to show off with fancy techniques, Maria's consistency stood out. While others missed or overcompensated, she maintained perfect control over each shot. Her movements were smooth, deliberate, and precise. Her rifle, once the subject of ridicule, now seemed like an extension of herself. The more people doubted her at first, the more impressive her performance became. It wasn't just skill that amazed them, it was the confidence behind it. Maria never hesitated, never faltered under the pressure of an audience that had underestimated her. Every hit reinforced the truth that preparation and practice mattered more than modern equipment. By the time the first stage of the competition ended, many spectators were silent, unable to hide their astonishment. Maria had turned the laughter into admiration, all without saying a word. The experience taught her something important. People often judge based on appearances, assuming that newer, flashier tools automatically mean better results. Maria realized that true mastery comes from understanding your tools, knowing your limits, and practicing until your skill becomes instinctive. Her old rifle, which everyone mocked, was not a weakness. It was the key to her success. It forced her to focus on fundamentals, to develop patience, and to cultivate a deep connection with the craft itself. By the end of the day, Maria had earned the respect of the other participants. Some approached her, hesitant at first, asking questions about her techniques and how she had learned so quickly. Others simply watched in awe, silently acknowledging that skill and dedication could outperform technology and showmanship. Her performance became a quiet statement. It's not what you hold in your hands that matters most. It's how well you know it, how much you practice, and how much heart you put into it. That day, the laughter that greeted Maria's arrival had transformed into admiration and respect. Even those who had mocked her couldn't deny her abilities. She had proven that discipline, patience, and quiet determination could overcome doubt and ridicule. More than that, she had discovered something profound about herself. She didn't need validation from others to know her worth. She had cultivated a skill that commanded respect on its own, and she was ready for whatever challenge came next. Little did Maria know, this competition was only the beginning. Her ability to remain calm under pressure, her unwavering focus, and her mastery of the old rifle were about to catch the attention of people far beyond her small town. The military, known for its elite marksmen and advanced technology, would soon witness what she had been practicing for years. And when that time came, everyone who had laughed at her old rifle would be forced to recognize the quiet power and precision she carried in her hands. When Maria stepped up for her first real demonstration, she felt a mixture of calm and excitement. All the laughter and whispers about her old rifle seemed to fade away as she focused on the targets in front of her. She had practiced for years, and now it was time to let her skill speak for itself. The competition area was buzzing with participants showing off their high-tech rifles, their polished movements, and their confident smiles. Everyone assumed they were the ones who would impress the judges and the audience. Maria, however, quietly set up her old, worn rifle, adjusted her stance, and took a deep breath. As soon as she fired her first shot, a hush fell over the crowd. The bullet hit the target exactly where she had aimed. The sound of the shot echoed, but more than that, it echoed in the minds of the people watching. They had expected her to miss, to fumble, or to struggle. Instead, she demonstrated perfect control, even under the pressure of so many eyes watching. The rifle, which had been the source of so much mockery, suddenly became a tool of precision and power in Maria's hands. Her calmness and steady focus made it clear that the age or condition of the weapon didn't matter. Her skill was the real force at work. As Maria continued to fire, her shots consistently hit the center of the targets, and even the more difficult ones that many competitors had failed to reach. Some targets were at distances that would challenge even experienced shooters. Each time she hit one, murmurs of disbelief spread through the crowd. People who had been mocking her earlier were now staring, wide-eyed. "How is she doing this?" whispered one of the competitors. Others could not hide their astonishment. The whispers of ridicule were replaced by quiet conversations of admiration. Even the judges seemed surprised, leaning forward to get a better view of her technique. What made Maria stand out wasn't just her accuracy. It was the precision and consistency she maintained with every shot. While other shooters were anxious, trying to show off or adjusting their weapons nervously, Maria's movements were smooth, deliberate, and confident. She didn't rush and she didn't overthink. She had learned to let instinct and training guide her. Every time she aimed, she remembered the countless hours spent practicing alone in her backyard, learning the exact balance and feel of the rifle. That practice, which had seemed so ordinary in her quiet town, had now transformed into extraordinary skill. Maria's presence on the range also taught the audience something important. Confidence is silent, and true skill doesn't need to be loud. She didn't shout, boast, or try to prove anything. She simply did what she knew she could do. Every shot reinforced the lesson she had learned from her grandfather. The strength of a marksman comes from within, from discipline and patience, not from the newest technology or the loudest gestures. The crowd began to realize that they had misjudged her. The young woman with the old rifle was not just competent. She was exceptional. The reactions of the other participants were fascinating to watch. Some tried to imitate her stance or adjust their approach, hoping to understand her secret. Others stared silently, unable to believe what they were witnessing. For some, pride and ego were challenged. They had assumed that their new, expensive rifles and flashy techniques would give them a clear advantage. Maria had proved otherwise. Skill, focus, and dedication could surpass even the most advanced equipment. Her quiet confidence and mastery of fundamentals outshone the spectacle of technology. By the end of her demonstration, Maria had completed rounds that most participants struggled with. Every shot she fired hit or came very close to the intended mark. The judges took notes, some whispering among themselves, clearly impressed by her performance. Spectators began to gather around her, asking questions about how she had learned so quickly, how she maintained such steady aim, and what techniques she used. Maria answered politely, humbly, never boasting, and always crediting her years of practice and the guidance of her grandfather. What made the moment even more remarkable was how Maria handled the attention. She didn't let the sudden respect or curiosity overwhelm her. Instead, she remained calm, as if she had expected this all along. She had spent so many years honing her skill in quiet isolation that facing an audience, even one full of skeptics, felt like just another practice session. Every shot she fired that day strengthened not only her reputation but also her own confidence. She realized that she could perform under pressure, and that the years of patience, focus, and discipline had prepared her perfectly for this moment. By the end of the demonstration, the initial ridicule had completely vanished. Maria had transformed perceptions in a single afternoon. The old rifle, once laughed at, had become a symbol of her dedication and mastery. The crowd, which had come expecting entertainment or perhaps to witness a novelty, left with admiration and awe. Maria had done more than just hit targets. She had taught an important lesson. Skill and practice matter far more than appearances, technology, or assumptions. From that day forward, Maria's reputation began to grow. People who had mocked her started to respect her, and even her competitors couldn't deny her talent. Her demonstration was more than just a display of shooting. It was proof that patience, dedication, and a deep understanding of one's craft could overcome prejudice and doubt. And while Maria didn't yet know it, this performance was just the beginning. It was the first time she had shown the world what she was capable of, and soon even more challenging audiences, including the military, would witness her extraordinary skill. After Maria's remarkable demonstration, word of her skill began to spread quickly. What had started as a small competition in her quiet town was now creating ripples beyond her backyard and local range. People who had once mocked her old rifle were now curious, even cautious, as they tried to understand how a young woman with a decades-old weapon could outperform seasoned shooters with the latest equipment. Maria didn't seek attention, but attention found her. She had become a quiet sensation, a story of skill and determination that everyone wanted to witness. Soldiers, trainers, and shooting enthusiasts began to show interest. Some visited the local range just to watch her practice. Others tried to challenge her, confident that their newer rifles and faster techniques would give them the edge. Maria welcomed the attention, not because she wanted to prove anyone wrong, but because she finally had an audience that allowed her to test her limits in new ways. The mockery she had faced earlier had vanished, replaced by a growing respect that she hadn't expected. It was a strange but empowering feeling, to have people who had doubted her now watching her every move with admiration and curiosity. When Maria stepped onto the range in front of these new observers, she remained calm. She knew that showing off was not her goal. Demonstrating mastery through focus and precision was. Each shot she fired hit its target with remarkable accuracy. People watched, transfixed, as she seemed to anticipate the behavior of the rifle, adjusting instinctively for wind, distance, and slight movements in her stance. It wasn't luck or flashy technology that made her stand out. It was years of patient practice, an intimate understanding of her tool, and a steady mind that refused to be distracted by noise or skepticism. Some of the military trainers, initially skeptical, began to take notice. They had seen countless shooters with state-of-the-art rifles, some of whom were highly trained professionals. Yet here was Maria, a civilian with an old rifle, performing with a consistency and skill that rivaled even the best. They watched in silence, occasionally exchanging glances that revealed their surprise. It was rare, they admitted to themselves, to witness someone with such quiet confidence and flawless technique. Maria's performance forced them to rethink their assumptions. Perhaps it wasn't just the rifle, but the mind behind it that mattered most. Even other competitors, who had once laughed or mocked her, were now observing her with a mix of awe and respect. Some tried to imitate her approach, adjusting their stance or breathing techniques, hoping to discover the secret behind her uncanny accuracy. Others simply watched quietly, realizing that they were witnessing someone who had truly mastered her craft. Maria didn't let this newfound attention change her. She maintained her calm, humble demeanor, letting her skill speak louder than any words. What made this moment so important was not just Maria's accuracy but the way she carried herself. She had learned, through countless hours of solitary practice, that confidence did not require loud gestures or arrogant displays. True mastery was quiet, subtle, and precise. Every movement she made, every shot she fired, demonstrated this principle. Observers began to understand that her calmness under pressure was as impressive as her marksmanship. It was one thing to hit targets. It was another to do so with such effortless composure that the entire audience felt the skill radiating from her. Maria's ability to remain focused also highlighted a lesson about perseverance. She had spent years practicing alone, facing no audience, no applause, and often no encouragement. People doubted her, called her old rifle useless, and even laughed at her dedication. Yet she persisted. Her quiet resilience had prepared her for this very moment, showing that patience, practice, and discipline could achieve extraordinary results. Her story was no longer just about shooting. It was about determination, self-belief, and the power of mastering one's craft regardless of external approval. As more people watched her, Maria began to inspire those around her. Young shooters, previously intimidated by advanced rifles or competitive pressure, saw in her a model of how dedication and focus could overcome any perceived disadvantage. Even the more experienced shooters, who had relied on technology or years of formal training, found themselves learning from her example. Maria's journey demonstrated that skill wasn't about the newest tools or flashy techniques. It was about understanding what you had, perfecting it, and trusting yourself to perform under pressure. By the end of the day, Maria had earned more than admiration. She had earned respect. Observers who had mocked her old rifle now nodded in acknowledgement of her skill. Even the military trainers, who were used to evaluating hundreds of shooters, admitted quietly that her precision and composure were exceptional. Her old rifle, once considered a joke, had become a symbol of discipline, patience, and mastery. Maria herself didn't change. She remained humble, focused, and quietly determined. But the world around her had shifted its perception. Maria's experience taught everyone present that appearances can be deceiving. Tools, technology, and flashy equipment might impress at first glance, but true excellence comes from understanding, practice, and focus. The respect she earned that day wasn't just for her marksmanship. It was for the dedication, patience, and quiet strength that she brought to every shot. Her journey was no longer just hers. It had become an example, a story that would inspire others to believe in the power of skill over assumptions and determination over ridicule. By the time Maria left the range, she had transformed the opinions of everyone present. What began as mockery had turned into admiration, and the seeds of recognition had been planted. This was only the beginning. Her exceptional skill, her calm under pressure, and her mastery of the old rifle would soon reach far beyond her town, capturing the attention of those in the military who valued talent, precision, and courage above all else. After Maria's impressive performance at the local shooting competitions, her reputation began to spread beyond her small town. Stories about the young woman who could outmatch trained shooters with an old rifle reached the ears of military officials. They were intrigued. How could a civilian, untrained in formal military programs, handle a rifle with such precision and control? Some were skeptical, thinking it might be exaggerated. Others were curious, eager to see if the rumors were true. Eventually, the military decided to invite Maria to a formal evaluation at one of their training bases, a place where elite soldiers trained and competed daily. When Maria received the invitation, she felt a mixture of excitement and calm determination. She understood that this was a completely different level from the small local competitions she had participated in. Here, she would face professional soldiers, equipped with the latest rifles and advanced technology. The environment would be intense, and the stakes were higher. Yet Maria had learned over the years that focus, patience, and skill were far more important than intimidation. She packed her old rifle carefully, ensuring it was clean and in perfect working order, and prepared herself for the challenge ahead. Upon arriving at the military base, Maria felt the weight of the environment immediately. The place was filled with highly trained personnel, men and women who had spent years in rigorous programs, mastering the most advanced weaponry available. The initial reactions she received were a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and quiet amusement. Some soldiers whispered among themselves, glancing at her old rifle as if it were a relic. "She won't stand a chance," one said. Another smirked. "Maybe she's lucky in small competitions, but here, it won't work." Maria ignored the murmurs. She had faced doubt before, and she knew that confidence and focus mattered far more than other people's opinions. The evaluation began, and Maria was guided to a range set up for various shooting challenges. The targets were complex, designed to test not only accuracy but also speed, precision, and adaptability. She noticed the advanced rifles the other participants carried, many with scopes, stabilizers, and other modern enhancements. But Maria felt no fear. She knew her skill, her years of practice, and her intimate knowledge of her old rifle would be her advantage. With a deep breath, she stepped into position, determined to let her training guide her. As the first challenge began, Maria's calm demeanor stood out immediately. While others adjusted their modern rifles and tried to optimize every feature, she relied on her instincts and steady focus. Each shot she fired was precise, hitting targets that seemed almost impossible for even the experienced soldiers. The sound of her shots was met with stunned silence at first. People had expected hesitation, misfires, or mistakes. Instead, they saw a young woman executing each shot with flawless technique and composure. It was clear that her control over the rifle was not just skill, it was mastery. The military observers began to exchange glances. They were seeing something rare. Someone whose skill did not depend on technology, equipment, or reputation. Maria was competing on an even playing field, but her understanding of her weapon and her disciplined training gave her an edge that could not be measured by modern tools alone. Every time she hit a difficult target, a ripple of surprise spread through the audience. Soldiers who had initially doubted her now watched in awe, taking mental notes and trying to understand how someone with such humble beginnings could outperform trained professionals. As the evaluation continued, Maria faced increasingly difficult challenges. She had to adjust for distance, moving targets, and different shooting positions. Each task tested her patience, focus, and adaptability. While some participants grew nervous, overconfident, or rushed their shots, Maria maintained her calm. She visualized each shot, aimed carefully, and executed with precision. The old rifle, which others might have dismissed as outdated or inferior, seemed to respond perfectly to her skill. It was almost as if the rifle had become an extension of herself, perfectly in sync with her instincts and focus. By the end of the evaluation, Maria had completed every challenge with exceptional results. Even the most skeptical military personnel had to acknowledge her performance. Some quietly remarked on her technique, others openly praised her ability to maintain composure under pressure, and a few admitted that her skill exceeded their expectations. She had not only met the challenge, she had surpassed it, proving that experience, patience, and mastery could outshine modern equipment and formal training. Maria's success at the military base became a turning point. Her story was no longer just about local competitions or backyard practice. She had demonstrated her ability to operate at the highest levels, earning respect from some of the most elite professionals in the field. It was a clear lesson for everyone watching. Talent, dedication, and focus matter far more than appearances, assumptions, or the newest tools. Her old rifle, once mocked, had become a symbol of discipline, precision, and mastery. As Maria left the base that day, she felt a quiet sense of pride, not in proving anyone wrong, but in knowing that her years of hard work, patience, and focus had prepared her for this exact moment. She had faced doubt, skepticism, and intimidation and emerged stronger and more confident. Her story was now ready to inspire others, showing that skill, determination, and careful practice could achieve what many thought impossible. When Maria arrived at the military firing range for the evaluation, the atmosphere was tense. Soldiers who had trained for years with the newest rifles and advanced targeting systems were gathered, ready to compete and show off their skills. Many of them glanced at Maria skeptically, noticing her old rifle and her calm, unassuming demeanor. Some whispered among themselves, thinking she wouldn't last long. Others laughed quietly, convinced that her outdated firearm would be no match for their advanced equipment. Maria, however, ignored all the noise. She had faced doubt and mockery before, and she knew that confidence and precision were far more important than what others thought. As the challenge began, Maria stepped up with calm determination. She had studied every movement, every angle, and every detail of shooting countless times in her backyard. She didn't rush. Unlike others who tried to impress the observers with speed or flashy techniques, Maria focused entirely on control, accuracy, and steady execution. Her first shot went straight to the center of the target. A hush fell over the crowd. Soldiers who had been confident seconds before now exchanged surprised glances. No one expected such perfect aim from someone with a rifle that had seen decades of use. Maria's consistency quickly became apparent. With each successive shot, she maintained flawless accuracy, hitting targets at distances that many trained soldiers found challenging. The advanced rifles around her seemed almost irrelevant as she outperformed those who had relied on their technology rather than true skill. She adjusted naturally for wind, distance, and slight shifts in her posture, demonstrating not only technical mastery but also instinctive understanding. Every observer began to realize that they were watching someone whose ability was far beyond ordinary. What amazed the soldiers and trainers most was not just her accuracy but the way she handled pressure. Each round of the evaluation became more challenging, with targets moving faster, angles becoming trickier, and distances increasing. Many soldiers struggled to keep up, their hands shaking or their shots missing because of nerves. Maria, however, remained calm, focused, and precise. She moved smoothly from one target to another, adjusting seamlessly without hesitation. Her composure under pressure was extraordinary, showing a level of discipline that even the most experienced soldiers found impressive. Some participants tried to imitate her technique, adjusting their posture or changing how they aimed. But Maria's advantage wasn't something they could copy in minutes. It came from years of patient practice, dedication, and understanding of her rifle. She had spent countless hours mastering not just the mechanics of shooting but also the mental aspect, breathing, focus, and the ability to block out distractions. This combination of skill and mental strength gave her an edge that no modern technology could replicate. As Maria continued to excel, the whispers of doubt turned into murmurs of astonishment. Even the instructors and commanding officers, who had seen countless skilled shooters, were impressed. Some quietly discussed her form and technique, noting how she had combined patience with instinct to achieve extraordinary results. Others openly acknowledged her performance, nodding in approval or expressing disbelief at what they were witnessing. Maria's reputation, already growing from local competitions, was now spreading rapidly through the ranks of the military. By the middle of the evaluation, it became clear that Maria was not just performing well. She was dominating. She outshot competitors with far more advanced equipment, hitting targets that seemed impossible for even highly trained personnel. The soldiers who had laughed at her old rifle now watched in silence, unable to deny the evidence of their own eyes. Maria had turned skepticism into respect, showing that mastery, focus, and dedication could outperform the most advanced tools. Her performance also sent a powerful message. True skill cannot be measured by equipment alone. While others relied on scopes, stabilizers, and technology, Maria relied on her experience, precision, and deep understanding of her rifle. Each shot was deliberate, each movement carefully calculated, yet executed with fluidity and confidence. It was almost as if the rifle had become a natural extension of her body, responding perfectly to her intentions and focus. Observers were struck by how effortlessly she made it look, Yet everyone knew it was the result of years of disciplined training and practice. By the end of the evaluation, Maria had completed every task with exceptional skill. Every target, no matter how difficult, had been hit with precision. Even the most skeptical commanders admitted that her performance was remarkable. They praised not only her technical ability but also her mental strength, composure, and determination. Maria had proven that she could outmatch the best-trained soldiers, not through technology or showmanship, but through mastery of her craft. As the session concluded, Maria quietly packed her old rifle, her calm demeanor unchanged. Around her, the military personnel were buzzing with respect and amazement. Some approached to ask questions, others simply nodded in acknowledgement. Maria didn't boast or seek attention. She had demonstrated her skill, and that alone commanded recognition. Her old rifle, once mocked, had become a symbol of discipline, precision, and excellence. That day, Maria's extraordinary performance reshaped everyone's understanding of skill and dedication. She had faced doubt, skepticism, and intimidation and emerged as a remarkable example of mastery. Her calm, confident approach, combined with years of patient practice, had allowed her to outmatch trained soldiers with advanced weapons. Maria's story was no longer just about an old rifle. It was about determination, focus, and the power of true skill. It was proof that experience, patience, and mastery could triumph over technology, doubt, and appearances. After Maria's extraordinary performance at the military evaluation, her reputation began to grow rapidly. The initial skepticism and doubt from the soldiers and trainers had completely vanished. What had once been whispers of disbelief turned into admiration and respect. High-ranking officers, who had seen countless talented shooters, were now openly praising Maria's skill. They acknowledged that her combination of focus, patience, and experience with her old rifle was truly exceptional. Maria's performance had not only proven her abilities but also challenged everyone's assumptions about skill, equipment, and training. The recognition came in many forms. Some officers approached her privately, asking about her techniques, wanting to understand how she maintained such composure under pressure. Others discussed her with colleagues, comparing her precision to that of the most elite soldiers they had trained. Maria, however, remained humble. She didn't boast or make claims about being better than anyone else. She simply explained that her success came from years of disciplined practice, patience, and learning to truly understand her rifle. She emphasized that mastery was not about showing off or relying on the newest technology. It was about dedication, focus, and connection to the craft. Her story quickly became an inspiration, not only within the military but also among civilians and young shooters. Many people who had once doubted themselves realized that skill and determination could overcome obstacles that seemed impossible. Maria's performance showed that true ability does not depend on appearances, modern tools, or even formal recognition. It comes from hard work, focus, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. For young shooters, her example was especially powerful. They saw that age, gender, or the equipment they owned did not define their potential. What mattered most was their dedication, practice, and belief in their own capabilities. Military officials, impressed by her abilities, began to invite Maria to participate in more advanced training exercises. They wanted her to demonstrate her skills to larger groups of soldiers and even help train others in techniques that emphasized focus, patience, and precision over technology alone. Maria accepted these invitations not out of desire for fame, but because she wanted to share the lessons she had learned. She knew that her experience could help others improve, and she felt a sense of responsibility to show that success was possible even without the newest tools or flashy techniques. As she continued to work with the military, Maria earned further recognition. She was praised for her composure under pressure, her steady hand, and her ability to read situations quickly and accurately. Her old rifle, which had been the subject of ridicule when she first brought it to competitions, was now seen as a symbol of mastery. It represented discipline, patience, and the understanding that true skill comes from within, not from the equipment one holds. Maria's performance proved that with the right mindset and practice, even something considered outdated or simple could be used to achieve extraordinary results. What made her recognition even more meaningful was the respect she earned from her peers. Soldiers who had initially mocked her were now approaching her for advice, tips, and guidance. They wanted to learn from her example not because of the rifle she used, but because of the discipline, focus, and dedication she had demonstrated. Maria's calm demeanor and willingness to share her knowledge made her a respected figure among her peers, proving that true skill inspires respect, not fear or envy. Her story began to spread beyond the base as well. Word of the young woman who could outmatch trained soldiers with an old rifle circulated through social media, news outlets, and shooting communities. People were inspired not just by her marksmanship, but by the lessons her journey conveyed. Maria became a symbol of perseverance, proving that dedication and practice can overcome doubt, mockery, and even the limitations of equipment. She showed that being underestimated could be turned into an opportunity to demonstrate strength and skill. Through all the recognition and admiration, Maria remained grounded. She never lost sight of what had brought her this far: years of practice, her grandfather's guidance, and her dedication to understanding her craft. She reminded everyone she met that skill is earned through patience, focus, and consistent effort, not shortcuts or technology alone. Her story became a living example that mastery is a journey, and every step of that journey matters. By the end of this phase in her journey, Maria's impact was undeniable. She had transformed the opinions of those who had doubted her, inspired countless others, and earned a place of respect in the military and civilian shooting communities alike. The lessons she demonstrated went beyond shooting. They were about perseverance, humility, dedication, and the power of believing in one's own abilities. Her journey showed that recognition is not just about talent, but about how one applies it, how one practices it, and how one carries oneself under pressure. Maria's story had now reached a point where it was no longer about her alone. She had become a symbol of what can be achieved through determination, discipline, and focus. She had shown that even an old rifle, once mocked, could be wielded with precision to achieve results that commanded admiration. Her journey inspired others to look beyond appearances, to value skill over tools, and to trust in their own potential. Maria had turned her talent into a legacy, one that would be remembered and celebrated by all who witnessed her extraordinary abilities. After all her remarkable achievements and recognition, Maria Jenkins had finally reached a point where her story was no longer just about shooting. It was about inspiration, perseverance, and the power of dedication. From the quiet girl practicing alone in her backyard to a figure admired by military officials and skilled marksmen, Maria had proven that true ability is born from patience, focus, and relentless practice. Her journey was extraordinary, and the impact of her story extended far beyond the shooting range. Maria continued to train rigorously, but she also began to share her knowledge with others. She taught young shooters the importance of understanding their weapon, the value of patience, and the necessity of focus. She emphasized that success was not about having the newest or most advanced equipment, but about mastering what you already have. Many of her students were inspired by her story, especially those who had once felt underestimated or overlooked. Maria's journey showed them that with determination and discipline, they could achieve far more than they ever imagined. The military, impressed by her exceptional skill, started involving her in more training programs and demonstrations. Maria demonstrated techniques that emphasized precision, calmness under pressure, and mastery of fundamentals. Soldiers who had previously dismissed her now sought her advice, curious to learn from her unique approach. Her presence became a source of motivation for those around her, showing that respect is earned not through appearance or status, but through skill, dedication, and consistent effort. Maria's old rifle, once the subject of mockery, had now become legendary. It symbolized the journey she had taken, the countless hours of practice, the lessons from her grandfather, and the quiet determination that had allowed her to excel. People began to see the rifle not as an outdated tool but as a testament to the principle that true mastery comes from understanding and dedication, not the newest technology. It served as a reminder that persistence and commitment could turn what others considered a weakness into a powerful advantage. As her story spread, it inspired people beyond the shooting community. Maria's journey reached social media, news outlets, and storytelling platforms, captivating audiences with her example. People admired her humility, her focus, and the way she had turned ridicule into recognition. She became a symbol of hope for those who had been underestimated or overlooked in their own lives, showing that belief in oneself, paired with hard work, can overcome doubt, prejudice, and challenges. Her story resonated with anyone striving to prove their worth, regardless of the tools they possessed or the opinions of others. Despite her growing recognition and admiration, Maria remained humble. She never let fame or attention distract her from her purpose. She continued to practice, refine her skills, and teach others, knowing that mastery is a lifelong journey. Her calm, focused approach became a lesson in itself. True strength does not need to be loud or boastful. It is quiet, consistent, and patient, and it reveals itself when skill and preparation meet opportunity. Maria embodied this lesson in every action, earning admiration not only for her talent but also for her character. Maria also recognized the power of her story to inspire change. She encouraged people to focus on skill over tools, discipline over shortcuts, and determination over doubt. She reminded others that being underestimated can be a gift. It gives you the chance to surprise, to prove your abilities, and to show the world what true mastery looks like. Her example encouraged people to embrace challenges, remain patient, and trust in the value of consistent effort, no matter how small the daily steps might seem. By the time Maria's story had fully reached the public, she had achieved something far greater than winning competitions or impressing military officials. She had created a legacy that proved age, appearances, or outdated tools do not limit potential. A legacy that showed skill, discipline, and patience are far more powerful than ridicule or assumptions. She had turned her old rifle from a subject of mockery into a symbol of excellence, proving that mastery comes from dedication, not technology or external validation. Her journey also highlighted a universal truth. The path to excellence is not always glamorous. It is built on small, consistent actions, on the willingness to face skepticism, and on the ability to remain focused despite distraction. Maria's quiet determination, her relentless practice, and her refusal to be discouraged by mockery were the foundations of her success. Her story became a timeless example of how perseverance and focus can create extraordinary results, even when the odds seem stacked against you. In the end, Maria Jenkins had transformed from a quiet, unassuming girl into a figure of respect, inspiration, and legend. She had shown the world that talent, patience, and mastery could overcome doubt, mockery, and even the newest technologies. Her story inspired countless others to believe in themselves, work hard, and trust in their abilities. And through it all, her old rifle remained a symbol, a reminder that with dedication, focus, and skill, anything is possible. Maria's journey concluded not with applause or accolades alone, but with the knowledge that she had inspired others to aim higher, work harder, and never underestimate their own potential. She had turned her passion, patience, and perseverance into a lasting legacy, proving that the quietest dedication can create the loudest impact.